Greetings, fellow readers. This is Rambling Collector here, and we are back with another book review for all of you today. And this time, instead of an indie author or anything like that, we're going to be diving into a classic this time, with Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. So, give a little context here. I've had more of an interest in checking out more of Ray Bradbury's works, especially after reading Martian Chronicles and what it entailed, which that review, then I look at it, was years ago. And this one alone captivated me because not only was it the context of the book, that being of a dystopian government involving the suppression of knowledge and the reliance on technology, but also just, again, the book burning, that immediately grabbed my attention when I checked it out in my local bookstore. Until now, it has sat on my shelf completely unread, gathering dust. However, I finally had the chance to read it recently, and can I just say, after finally diving into its pages, I did not expect as impactful of a story as I got from here. And needless to say, there was a lot of relatability to it, especially to our modern day society that we live in now. With that being said, though, let's get started with the review. So I will say this for a first fact. Despite being a short story of only 158 pages, the environment and story being told were highly impactful as well as relatable. The whole premise of Fahrenheit 451 is that it takes place in a dystopian future where we have an overbearing government that is involved in the suppression of knowledge, and as well as an over-reliance upon technology. From what I remember reading of this one, see, I finished it in like 3 days, but regardless, let's get talking about it. So, our main character perspective is from Guy Montag, a simple fireman who goes about his day-to-day life burning books, as well as some of the victims involved, but also just living his life with a wife who is more attached to electronics than actually forming a relationship with him, as well as him just never questioning things in life, until he runs into a young girl named Clarice, who really has him start to think, who gives him an invigorating conversation, especially after she's recently moved over. She and her family, I should say, moved over as next-door neighbors to Guy Montag. And I will say, one thing that instantly captivated me is how Clarice was always questioning things about why, never just how, such as why does this do this, or why does rubbing a dandelion on your chin signify something. It was her way of kind of invigorating the brain to think and invoking a more, I would say, palatable conversation, rather than just, how did this go, or how was this? She questions the whys, and because of this, Guy Montag instantly has more of a curiosity and forms a fast friendship with her, until a few days later when he finds out after she had been gone for 4 days that she had been hit by a car, which definitely started having Guy Montag really starting to question more about his world, especially after just interacting with her for a while. And because of this, we get to see Montag's worldview opening up slowly but surely, or I should say rapidly, throughout this entire story. Because in this society, everything is about going fast, moving quickly, learning how things work, but never questioning anything. Always being on the move, never having time to think. People are going like 90 miles an hour in cars, electronics are blaring everywhere across multiple screens, and then you've also got folks who are more prone to violence, and of course, you have the firemen who are burning anything banned, such as books related. There is constant book burnings around where people look around for the show of it, whereas before, firemen used to be involved in putting out fires until buildings were rendered fireproof. Guy sees all of this, and he really starts to have his worldview opening to the point where he wants to learn how to read, but he has to keep it on the down low, lest he risk his own house and himself being burned, or in his case being arrested. Especially since his wife is more of the follower type, and at one point he even finds her ODing on pills, has her life saved by 2 regular folks coming in there with a pipe to flush out his wife's insides, his wife's stomach, of all the medicine that she had taken. And that alone was a pretty grisly sighting to see, I'm not gonna lie. But over the course of this, we see how his mind is slowly expanding, seeing how things are going. And his constant fire chief captain, Beatty, isn't exactly helping with spouting a lot of verses of knowledge from Shakespeare and classic writers, whilst saying that at the end of the day, their job is important because they keep people from thinking. And we see various examples of this with people barely being able to talk to one another except within a TV screen, such as emphasized by Montag's wife. But more than that, we see how they're constantly on the move. People are spending less time in school and more time out in parks, letting out their aggressions. We see many wars being fought within hours and whatnot. We've learned that the society is a post-nuclear war in 2022, or at least post-2022. And to me, that is a terrifying prospect. Like, it really, really is a terrifying thing to think about. And I will say, this goes into Montag's transition throughout the story, which, while incredibly quick, it was incredibly interesting, going from a simple fireman to a wandering scribe, and it was incredible to witness. Like, we see him wanting to learn more about these books. We see him contacting an old professor whom he had met at one point while taking a walk in a park, and had been given his phone number, whether to call to burn him or call to talk to him, because he recognized that Montag was a similar soul, seeking answers but never knowing which direction to turn, especially in the society that they live in now. However, it all winds up going horribly wrong because Montag, throughout this story, we can see that he definitely has a bit of a short temper, and at one point, when his wife invites friends over and he reads a book of poetry towards them, causing a very erratic reaction from them, it results in him getting called twice, first by his wife's friends, and then by his wife herself, after he revealed to her this whole secret stash of books that he had kept within their house. Which, to be fair, I can see why she would freak out, but at the same time, the fact that she willingly sold him out makes me angry to a severe degree. But throughout this, we see that their marriage essentially was failing. Regardless of how we think about it, it was really failing. While he did try to patch it up, it was too little too late. As a result, Montag is forced to retreat after his fire chief and the rest of his crew are sent to his house, and they instruct Montag to burn his entire house, everything within it, as well as placing Montag under arrest. But Montag manages to escape by using the flamethrower that they had given him to burn his captain and the rest of his crew. And then he makes a run for it with the remaining books that he had in his stash. He makes a run for it, and we feel that tension, that nervousness as he runs. And it was very gripping to see this whole thing play out, and seeing how he winds up meeting other professors who have been exiled, living out in the wilds, keeping the knowledge that they have retained locked within their minds until it is needed again. Initiating was essentially a quiet rebellion against the suppressive government that they are involved with in this society. It was interesting, to say the least. But ironically, the entire situation presented in this novel is slowly becoming a reality, which is an extremely terrifying prospect. Like, books themselves are not being burned or banned in any way, shape, or form that I'm aware of, yet the technological reliance is a very real thing that we are seeing here. We are slowly becoming more addicted to technology, addicted more to screens, what is in front of us, what is draining our brains, the high, fast-paced movement of video games, television, even phones and whatnot. It is slowly becoming a reality, and thinking about it now, after reading this book, it is an honestly terrifying prospect to think about. Like, I am genuinely spooked after reading this book. But let's go ahead and move on to random thoughts here, where you'll just hear me like spout a little bit. So, for this random thoughts segment, I want to say this. Dystopian novels to me are very strange to read, because some of them can be absolutely mind-boggling, some can be infuriating, and others can just be genuinely thought-provoking. Like, for instance, after reading Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles, and now reading Fahrenheit 451, I'm kind of curious to read more of his stuff, but I am also thinking that at some point I want to go back and reread George Orwell's 1984, another dystopian government novel that I read way back when. Now, unfortunately, I read that one back in high school as part of my English class. That along with Great Gatsby. And let me tell you right now, English courses, as you follow along with their reading chapter by chapter, like a chapter a day, following along with and analyzing this book in front of you, it genuinely makes you detest it all the more. And I think for me, reading 1984, constantly wanting to know more but being unable to follow along, or at least having to follow along with the rest of the class, left me infuriated because I wanted to know more. I wanted to further digest this novel, but I couldn't. Even then, 1984 is a hard novel to read because the possibilities that could have occurred at any point in time, and as well as finding out that, of course, this book at one point was banned. Now, I'm not sure if Fahrenheit 451 was the same, but now I'm kind of curious at some point about doing a possible Real Talk podcast segment where I talk about banned books in general and why they are banned, or for what reason or purpose. Because looking at Fahrenheit 451 and seeing this prospect of banned knowledge of Shakespeare or the Bible, for instance, is mind-boggling. And I'm genuinely curious to see more of that, or at least analyze more of the books that were in this quote-unquote banned list. I'm genuinely curious. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. The prospect of burning books is a terrifying thing to me because, to me, books are a way to escape from reality for a good long while, with these amazing worlds of fantasy and science fiction, all presented towards us, provoking the thought of imagination, life values, adventure, a way to kind of picture ourselves not as who we are in real life, but as a character within a story. And seeing that in particular presented in Fahrenheit 451 was a terrifying idea. Like imagining us becoming more technologically reliant, yet also being unable to think, being left with no chances to think at all, or just simply live in a world of high speed. It was provoking, to say the least. I think that might have been the point of this novel, was to provoke thoughts, to make us think, is this really the path we want to take? And let me know what your all's thoughts are on this, but for now, let's move on to the final score. Overall, I had to give Fahrenheit 451 a solid 10 out of 10 in my book. This one is definitely worth reading if you want to see the possible future, or if you just want to see a man changing his ways in a very fast-paced and diverse way. Or if you have read this book in the past, please let me know your thoughts and what you think of this novel, if you've read it already or not. Regardless though, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you like this one, please feel free to like the video, subscribe, or comment your thoughts down below of what you thought of this review, or what you think of Ray Bradbury or Fahrenheit 451 in general. Let me know your thoughts. I'm eager to start up another conversation with you all in the comments. And once again, if you like this video, subscribe if you're curious for more future podcast reviews that I'll do on here. Or if you like what I do here, I will leave a link to my playlist of book rambles. Or if you want to check out more self-published works, I will leave a link to that playlist as well. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and I will see you all in the next video. This is Ramble Collector, signing off for now. Have a great day, fellow readers. I will see you all in the next podcast.